Hi BookTube and welcome to a new video. This is a tag video. I was tagged by Brian over at Bookish and it was created by Gareth at Books, Songs and Other Magic. So thanks to both of those guys. I'll of course post links to the original video and to Brian's version of it. So prompts. 1. Name a song that always makes you happy. I don't know about happy, but this song always brings a smile to my face. It's Pop Tones by the band Public Image Limited, which is what Johnny Rotten, aka Johnny Lydon, went on to form when he left the Sex Pistols. And I like it. It brings a smile to my face because it's a song about suburbia, fairly critical, and delivered with that sort of Johnny Rotten, John Lydon sneering voice, and it always tickles me. Name a song that's a great fit for when you're in a pensive mood. Tons. So much so, I've always sort of, in my head, dreamt up or added to a playlist to be played at my funeral of all the songs I like. Now, it will never happen, because if there's any kind of sort of religious aspect to the funeral, they'll never allow all these profane music items to be played, but I would quite like the people who gather to mourn me to listen, because most of them don't understand my music or my musical tastes, and I'd like at least once for them to be assaulted by it, and so when I was tagged, I actually went away and put together a Spotify playlist which would be music for my funeral. One song that's not on there, because it's not on Spotify, which is very pensive, is a song by an artist called The Bug, and it's called Night Stepper, S-T-E-P-P-A, and it's probably what you call dubstep genre, which is full of sort of gaps and silences. It's very unworldly, except it's not unworldly. It's like an urban soundscape. And what's brilliant about this track is, on top of the music, is like this vocal by almost like a sort of a preacher, a Caribbean preacher, and it's just a brilliant combination. It's sort of almost apocalyptic, and it just works so well. I'm not going to put a link to it, but if you just type in The Bug Night Stepper on YouTube, you'll find it. 3. Name a song that changed your taste in music. I'm not sure if it was exactly this song, but it was punk rock. Up to then I'd been listening to Pink Floyd and Supertramp and all the Genesis. And when punk rock came along, which was obviously very fast, I couldn't go back and listen to those records. Although I do remember going to a record shop and buying a Genesis LP at the same time as I bought an album by The Jam, which is a very perverse duo. But I think, and so I don't know if it was this exact song, but the Stranglers, with the dirtiest bass sound I'd ever heard, and No More Heroes, got into the charts and they were on top of the pops. They weren't the first punk band on top of the pops, but they were one of the first. And I just remember I was at a friend's bar mitzvah party, and it was outside in a marquee. And all I wanted to do was find someone to talk about the Stranglers with. You know, this very middle class, quasi-religious celebration. And I wanted to talk punk rock. And yeah, after the sort of the likes of the Stranglers and the Jam, and to a lesser extent the Sex Pistols, which all of that quickly moved into new wave. Bands like Gang of Four, Au Pairs, Delta 5, Public Image Limited. That totally transformed my music, and out went all the Pink Floyd and Genesis. Not because they weren't cool, but they were just too slow. I couldn't listen to them anymore. 4. Name a recent song that you've just discovered and loved. None. 5. Oh, I will say, so it's not a recent song, but I've recently discovered a 70s reggae band called the Twinkle Brothers, and I'm greedily devouring all of their output. So when hip-hop came along in the 80s, I stopped listening to reggae, as I think a lot of people did. It became the sound of black cultural resistance that reggae had been in the UK in the 70s. And it rather usurped reggae's function in that. And only in my 50s, I mean, I still listen to hip-hop and love hip-hop, but only in my 50s have I gone back to reggae. And I'm in love with it more than I ever have been. So yeah, the Twinkle Brothers. 5. Name 3 bands or artists that you love. I'm going to name 4 because I can't separate these. So Joy Division, the Beastie Boys, the Au Pairs, I mentioned a new wave band, and a German industrial band called Einstürzende Neubauten. And I've seen, out of all of those, I've only seen play live Einstürzende Neubauten, sadly, and I won't get the chance to see the others. Adam Yauch of Beastie Boys, rest in peace, died at 49. 6. What instrument would you like to be able to play? The bass guitar, and I did actually own a bass guitar, but I couldn't master it because I'm inept with my hands and have no sense of rhythm. Copyright Daniel Guilty Feet. But I had it when I was at university, and they had what were called May balls, where each of the 17 colleges at Cambridge, after the exam period, had May ball that they sold tickets for. It was formal wear, usually, not exclusively, and they'd get a big act to play. And one year, my final year, one of the colleges had New Order, which is what Joy Division became. They of Blue Monday fame. Although I don't think Blue Monday, had it come out by then? No, I don't think it had when they played this gig. And a friend of mine at college was in a band, and they got the support slot for New Order at this gig. Now, he was a guitarist, but he'd been sort of drafted into this band and asked to play bass, and didn't own a bass, so he asked to borrow mine, which I readily lent him. So my bass guitar has been on the same stage as New Order. Sadly, not with me playing it. 7. Name a fiction book with music at the centre of the narrative. Funnily enough, in my last Friday reads, I talked about this book at length because it is so brilliantly written about sound. Let me go and get it for you. It's this. It's called Fire Rush, and it has dub reggae at the heart of it, and I loved it. And I will post the link to my review of it. And I've added this question. It wasn't in the original, so this is question 8. Literature and music. I mean, there's always been a crossover and a synthesis between the two. And I blogged, and again I'll post a link to this, of 10-15 songs that have were inspired by, or at least heavily allude to, works of literature. So things like Bomb the Bass, Bug Powder Dust, and 5ml Barrel. Bug Powder Dust was a reference to William Burroughs from the film. 5ml Barrel actually has Will Self, the author, narrating about drug addiction over the soundtrack that Bomb the Bass laid down. Gus Van Sant and William Burroughs made the film Drugstore Cowboy, and as an offshoot side project, they put out a 4-track EP with songs like Millions of Images, Word as Virus, things like that. The magazine Song from Under the Floorboards, directly references Dostoevsky's Underground Man. Anthrax by Gang of Four has the lyric, I feel like a beetle on its back, which is referencing Metamorphosis by Kafka. And the album Double Nickels on the Dime by the Minutemen, it's one of my favourite albums. Mike Watt, the bassist, who wrote a lot, each of the musicians wrote a third. He said he was inspired, having just read Joyce's Ulysses, and that permeates this double album of 55 tracks, something like that. And loads and loads and loads of more in my blog, which I'll post a link to. And finally, tag some people. So I'm going to tag just 2, Silja over in Norway, and the aforementioned Daniel of Guilty Feet, because I know he likes reading books about musicians. So I'm sure he's got a lot to offer on this tag. So there you go. Thanks very much. Till next time. Very quickly marking the edit here. I forgot to mention that I've done 2 music-related tags. One of them I originated, and I'll post links to them. One was the punk rock books tag, and the other was the one I originated, which was the hip hop book tag. So as I say, I'll post links to both of those.